MIDSOMMAR. Go. That's right. That's right, it's gonna be MIDSOMMAR. Come on. What's up, David? What's up, everybody? Summer solstice. Time to get druidical in here. That was Rooks G. We got one more up for us. Then we'll get started here. Shouts out to Jerry and Maddie out there who are doing a good stream. Now it's time to get MIDSOMMAR. Time to get druidical. It's time for the WICKER Man. Let's go. Jake. Where he's at. Yo, this song's at 12,000 views now on YouTube. That's just YouTube. This is Soul Crusher by Rooks G, ROOXG. Check him out on Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, everywhere. 12,000 views for our boy. Let's go. What's up, Jason? There's Mello. What's up? Just covered him. Let's go. R.I.P. to my man in every movie. Every movie. Thank you, Dan. Like, button, smash. Thank you. song stops. You gotta play Rooks G all the way through. Do you have your crystals? Do you have your crystals? Do you have your topaz? Do you have your topaz and your tiger eye ready to go for this summer solstice, midsummer? Are you ready to ascend, bro? That's our guy right there. That's our guy. Ting. That's our guy right there, Rooks G. What's up, y'all? Tonight we're covering Midsummer. It's a summer solstice stream. So I thought it would be perfect to cover a Midsummer Night Stream because it's midsummer. It's midsummer. And I'm going to tie in Christopher Lee in the Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man. Corn rigs and barley rigs on, corn rigs are bonny. Have you guys seen the Wicker Man? If you haven't seen the Wicker Man, it's one of the classic films of all time, 1973. It's one of the cornerstone movies of one of the cornerstone movies. You got to see it. So if you haven't seen it, I'm covering right here for you. Also, the movie Midsommar. Probably everybody's seen Midsommar by Ari Aster. Ari Aster. It's an A24 movie. So I'm going to cover Midsommar. He's the guy who did Hereditary. And I think he did Beau is Afraid. But Hereditary is a superior movie to Midsommar. I'm just going to put that out there. But they're different films. But they do have the same culmination climax, a sort of a shimmering climax with music resulting in a sacrifice. So I'm going to cover those two, but I'm going to start with A Midsummer Night's Dream. I also read Timon of Athens by Shakespeare, which is really an interesting play because it's somewhere between satire and farce. And it is not a tragedy, not a comedy. It's not even really a tragic comedy, not really even one of his romances. A romance in Shakespeare is a tragic comedy. And what defines, so I'll get into Midsummer Night's Dream first here. What defines a Shakespearean comedy is the classical comedy. That means that it has a happy ending. And usually comedies with happy endings culminate in a wedding ceremony, as opposed to, Good Night, Sweet Prince, the death scene, the funeral of a tragedy. There are 4 true Shakespearean tragedies, as I've talked about many times, which I've covered. I've covered all those. Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and of course Macbeth. But A Midsummer Night's Dream is interesting because it really, I've heard many times, and I agree with this to a point, that A Midsummer Night's Dream is a perfect play. It really is flawless. And because of the dulcet tones of the euphony and the speech, especially whenever Theseus or Oberon, especially when either of those two is speaking, it's a beautiful play, and it's one of the most often performed plays. Timon of Athens is almost never performed. I don't even think there's a film version of this. So I'm not talking about the film version of Midsummer Night's Dream, which has Bateman in it, has Christian Bale and Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm not talking about the film version. I'm just going to stick to the text here. So if you want to see any other Shakespearean analyses, that we started with that. We started with Macbeth, and I've gone through many Renaissance Jacobean and Elizabethan plays. Too many to name, but I'm trying to make my way through all 37 Shakespearean plays, and tonight I'll be doing 2 more, of course. So A Midsummer Night's Dream is interesting because, again, what the play is really, first of all, there's a play within a play. This is common for Shakespeare. We've seen this in Hamlet and a number of other plays. We kind of saw it in Coriolanus that was the last one that I covered. And a tragic comedy or a romance is kind of a misnomer because a romance in Shakespeare is not like romantic, like a love play. In fact, Timon of Athens has no women in it. It is Romanesque, and that's also a misnomer because it's Athenian. The play is it's in the very title. So is A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's Athenian, but Midsummer Night's Dream is different because it sort of functions as an allegory for fairy queen Spenserian-esque allegory for the reign of Queen Elizabeth. But my take on Midsummer Night's Dream is something that I got on this newest reading, which is that the play, first of all, has the dream within a dream. This is the character Bottom's dream. There's a character named Bottom who is one of the players in the play. He's putting on Pyramus and Thisbe. So Pyramus and Thisbe functions as a starting point for Romeo and Juliet. One of the things that Shakespeare did not do was invent many of his own plots, and that's fine. Great artists steal, bad artists will borrow. But he gained much resource. There's nothing new under the sun. He gained much resource from Plutarch and Ovid, and from various, Anglo-Saxon texts. I don't know about History of the Kings of Britain. I think that's one of his source materials, but it's mainly Plutarch and Ovid. But the interesting thing about this play is that what I realized with the setting in a kind of Arcadian setting, which is to say a perfect idyll, a perfect, not IDOL, but an IDYLL, a perfect pastoral setting, is that one of the things that's accomplished in this play is, I realized, is that we as adults in the summertime, we're in summer right now, we're at the height of summer, we're at midsummer. There's two ways we go with this. One is that there's the beauty of summertime and there's the hot sun and everything is fully in bloom. And we have the kind of seasonal changes that'll be discussed in Midsummer in a completely different manner. That's the deviation from this. But we look back at our youth in terms of summertime, at least I do. Maybe this is personal, maybe this is anecdotal, but I look backwards in time at youth, and at my own youth and at summertime as a great blazing, searing Dylan Thomas-esque Fern Hill where everything is perfect. I mean, I'm blessed to have had that. I'm sure many people will share that thought. But that's generally what we think about the innocence of childhood, that this is before the rite of passage, before you're aware of death, and we exist in a kind of perfect stasis. But once we get older and we put away childish things, we realize that we look back to those things and we always, in a way, compare our present summer to the summer of our youth, which was a kind of eternal summer because it lives in our memory. But as adults, what we have is not the past. The past is prologue, so we have to look forward to thy eternal summer shall not fade, as Shakespeare says, but this is the eternal summer of eternal life. So we look forward to what's in the future and what we can participate in a way that we participated, on earth in terms of our pastoral, idyllic summer of our youth. So where we're always young and where we never have trouble, right? So Shakespeare's play kind of presents a place where this is almost dreamlike, where dreams and reality coexist in this place, where there's a trickster character, there's Puck, but he's, and the word Puck, it comes from a kind of devil word, but he's a light-hearted trickster rather than a menacing trickster. Of course, maybe that's because they have to placate him in the play, I don't know, but he functions as a kind of spirit of the air, like Ariel in The Tempest. But all of Shakespeare's plays prior to A Midsummer Night's Dream, none of those plays match the heights of linguistic beauty that we get in the play. And one thing I've been reading, I read over the past three days, I read Timon of Athens, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Harold Bloom analysis, the Shakespeare A to Z, and I often reference that. This study of Ezra Pound, this one right here. It's called Ezra Pound, The Image and the Poet. So I finished that one. This book on Robin Hood. I started this book, which I'll be covering pretty soon. I'll be maybe covering Friday on TNT, which is G.R. Shaw, Predator Empire on drone warfare, which is really amazing. And there's something else that I read, and then I watched Midsummer and The Wicker Man, and also this movie, The Long Night, which again is in the same vein. It's about The Long Night is a 2022 horror movie about two characters who go to the girl is a former foster child. Now she's grown up, and they are going to go to her boyfriend's house, but they end up going to this other house in the woods, not really in the woods, kind of in nature, and then they get terrorized all night by a blatantly Crowleyan satanic cult with burning intercursal hexagrams and putting animal sacrifices on the front door, and they have to last the night. And then she is supposed to be the vessel for the new American satanic eon in the movie. And that's about all there is to say about the movie. I mean, it's just another one of these, but it reminded me of some things from Ezra Pound, because in this Ezra Pound book, it talks about how America functions in a way as the new Egypt. And also, there are a number of things in here, the crossing of the Atlantic and the crossing of the Red Sea. It's interesting to hear about the etymology. For instance, one thing he says here is that, and this ties in with what we're doing tonight. So he's talking about verse. So I'm just going to get into something kind of specific here and a little bit esoteric, but specific for literature. He says, his critic says that when making the distinction in language and avoiding is and to be verbs when you're writing, especially in poetry, and poems function as the great artifact of the present and the past. There's no better artifact to find than the written word, because you find objects or pictures or pictograms. It's always the written word that gives you the clearest indication of the civilization of the past. And as Coleridge said, the best words in the best order. He says, we do not say a tree greens itself, but the tree is green. Not that the monkeys bring forth live young, but that the monkey is a mammal. This is an ultimate weakness of language. It has come from generalizing all intransitive words into one. As live, see, walk, breathe are generalized into states by dropping their objects, so these weak verbs are in turn reduced to the abstractest state of all, namely bare existence. There is in reality no such verb as pure copula, no such original conception. Our very word exist means to stand forth, to show oneself by a definite act. Is comes from the Aryan root as, to breathe. Be is from bhu, to grow. So he's talking about the difference between existence, and demonstrating here, and how that occurs in terms of a literary sense, which made me think of course, how God says, I am that I am. The God is above and beyond our understanding of any of that, but demonstrates it through language. In the beginning was the Word. Scripture is God breathes, right? God moves over the face of the waters. Even the water. This is relevant for Shakespeare because the water itself looks like the very breath of the earth. It's up. It's palpitating. It's up and down. It has a rhythmical iambic rhythm, up and down, just like an EKG with a heartbeat. Just like our seasons go round, go up and down. Everything goes up and down. The fortunes of life go up and down. So it's interesting to think about Shakespeare and A Midsummer Night's Dream in this sense. Here's how the play starts. So the play starts. Listen to the language and how it starts. Happy days bring in another moon, but oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. She lingers my desires like to a stepdame or a dowager, long withering of a young man's revenue. 4 days will quickly steep themselves in night. 4 nights will quickly dream away the time, and then the moon, like to a silver bow, new bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities. Mirth turn melancholy forth to funerals. The pale companion is not for our pomp. The word moon occurs in this play so many times, and what I think it's doing here is it's showing that we are provided, especially in terms of literary imagery, with if we have this great, not in a dialectical sense, not in a yin yang sense, but we are provided with a great giving and taking, right? A back and forth. So, in other words, as the tide ebbs, so it will flow. So we have fortunes rising and falling. We have young age going into old age. But just like in the summertime, when you're warm in the summertime and there's the brightness of the sun. The sun also is a great sanitizer, right? It gets rid of the dirt and grime and the stains of your sort of suggestions and your intentions. Just like in the wintertime, even though nature dies or goes into hibernation or goes away, we also have the warmth of the hearth or the warmth of family or the warmth of togetherness, right? At Christmas time in the wintertime, the nativity in the wintertime. So time is interesting because time and mirth and melancholy are all tied in with the themes in this play. And one thing that Timon of Athens does is it blights our conceptions of what time is and of generosity. So at the beginning, I'll get into this more when I get into Timon of Athens in a second, but at the beginning of the play, we have this character who is a great giver to all of his friends. So all he does is give. But what happens is as he gives more expensive gifts, it turns out that people see him as just some sort of sycophant of his friends, even though he's above them in the hierarchy. But then he has this great lack, like he says in The Thin Red Line. Let me feel the lack, right? Because he's given so much, people start calling in their debts because he's had to be financed to give gifts. And then when they call in their debts, he rails at his friends for not understanding and not being forthright with them. So he puts his friends to the test. And then when he has nothing, he leaves Athens and goes out into the wilderness where he denies his whole heritage and everything. Just as he was generous with giving gifts to the extreme, now he is extreme in terms of his anger and his denial of everybody that he knew, and he turns against his former life and goes and lives in a kind of Plato's cave reverse style in the wilderness. And ironically, he starts looking for, digging into the ground for roots and berries to eat, but he finds gold. So even in his poverty, he finds gold, and now he's rich again, but he has no friends to give it to. And then he eventually, he curses all of Athens and wishes for warfare. And then he's joined by various characters. I'll get into it in a second. He's joined by various characters. And then eventually he puts up a kind of Yeatsian epitaph by his cave where he dies, which is a kind of, horseman pass by. In other words, this was a soul accursed. And Timon of Athens is strange because it's an experimental play. Some call it an experimental play, but it's almost as if, like Harold Bloom says, that as if he was filling in someone else's play, or he started writing and then he left it to go work on Pericles, as if it didn't suit him and somebody else filled it in. The verse is very strange, and it doesn't have what, again, Bloom calls the invention of the human. It almost functions as a kind of postmodern, a proto-postmodern experiential play. But Midsummer Night's Dream is not that. It is the best of a kind of Renaissance not a neoclassical. A neoclassical is a specific time, epic, and literature, but a return to the past in a dreamlike state of innocence where characters fall in and out of love. And this is what mirth is. This is mirth in terms of the gaiety of language, right? As a lot of these interests state, and as Bloom states and Northrop Frye. I mean, it's the beauty and the wondrous nature of laughter and humor and how it lifts the human spirit. And so the fact that it is the romantic comedy of all comedies tends to support its mirthful allegory for the human condition. So what happens in the play is basically that there's a number of characters. There is, Lysander and Demetrius, Oberon and Titania, Hermia, Theseus, the Duke of Athens. There are characters within the play that, actors within the play. Robin Goodfellow is Puck. Puck is the sprightly spirit. And the characters are all the actors go into the forest to rehearse a play that they're going to put on for Theseus, the Duke of Athens. And because they want to be away from prying eyes while they put on their play. And they kind of function as, when I discussed Much Ado About Nothing, they like Dogberry and his doggerel verse. They're silly, but they're not fools, especially not Bottom. Bottom is not a fool as he is as the fool is in King Lear. He's not a sophomore, a wise fool. He's more of a lighthearted sort of jester who is at the heart of the play. It's really his dream. He's weaving the play. And it's not a dream like, oh, I woke up and none of this happened. It's a dream as in life is like a dream. It's dreamlike in terms of its innocence for him. So while he's in the woods, Oberon has this dispute with Titania. Oberon is the king of the fairies, and Titania is a queen fairy, and they have this dispute over a changeling. And the changeling is a kind of male character spirit that is supposed to be in Oberon's retinue, but Titania has taken this changeling child away, and Oberon wants him back. Titania says that he is a member of the spiced Indian votive, as she says, a votive of her order. But this is going to present discord. If the two are out of union and out of sync with each other, it presents a discord because Oberon and Titania are metaphysical spirits. They can't produce children, but they need to create and preserve a certain hierarchy in nature in order to preserve the way that nature works in terms of the crops and the flowers blooming and the seasons. So Oberon tasks Puck with giving her a love potion, and when this happens, she gets a drowse upon her eyelids, and when she wakes up, she's going to fall in love with the first person she sees. This is a trope that it's a trope, but this is in Shakespeare. It's kind of the first time that we see this, and he took some. He had some variations of sources. I mean, especially Pyramus and Thisbe, but this is really a uniquely original Shakespearean play. And it gives us a lot of the same language that we get in Macbeth with, triple Hecate and the blind worm's sting. But instead of it being the depraved megalomaniacal evil intention of Macbeth, it ends up with something good here because it ends in a triple wedding. And so we have this pair of lovers who are star-crossed, mirroring Pyramus and Thisbe and Romeo and Juliet. And they also get love drugged, and then they pursue each other, but it ends all's well that ends well, again from Shakespeare, because they make their way through the forest, and the forest functions as a kind of greenwood for them in midsummer. And interestingly, midsummer is important for this because we have the longest day, but we have the kind of the druids thought that midsummer was the great celebration. The summer solstice is the great celebration of one of the two kings of nature, and then it's the takeover of the second half of the year. The days will start to wane as they've been rising up to this point. So we kind of reach a peak if we think of nature as a clock. And what was I going to say? I forgot my point just now. Let me get back to the text here and maybe I'll remember it. So this next section, I wrote that summer is the summer of youth. When one looks back upon one's own life, especially summer, melancholy rises. This is why the moon provides a constant image that drives the theme. Richard III is in the winter of discontent because we can't ever go back. We look forward to an eternal summer. So, let's see. Theseus, at the beginning of the play, in Act 1, Scene 1, says, either to die the death or to abjure for even the society of men. Therefore, fair Hermia, question your desires. Know of your youth. Examine well your blood. whether if you yield not to your father's choice, you can endure the livery of a nun. For I to be in a shady cloister mewed, to live a barren sister all your life, chanting faint hymns to the cold fruitless moon. Thrice blessed they that master so their blood to undergo such maiden pilgrimage. But earthlier happy is the rose distilled than that which withered on the virgin thorn grows, lives, and dies in single blessedness. And Hermia says, so will I grow, so live, so die. Ere will I yield my virgin patent up unto his lordship, whose unwished yoke my soul consents not to give sovereignty. She doesn't want to marry the guy that he wants her to marry. And then there are a number of Miltonian references in here. For instance, that he hath turned to heaven unto a hell. It's pure later Miltonian. Lysander says, Helen, to you our minds we will unfold tomorrow night, when Phoebe doth behold her silver visage in the watery glass, decking with liquid pearl the bladed grass, a time that lovers' flights doth still conceal. Through Athens' gates have we devised to steal. Oftentimes, although the play is an iambic pentameter, he will move to heroic couplets when we are either foreshadowing perfect love, like in a sonnet, like that's how Romeo and Juliet meet. Palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss. They say a sonnet. The whole play begins with a sonnet because we get a variation. This is the give and take. We have A, B, A, B. We have a varied rhyme scheme resulting in a couplet, which is the unification of two couples, of two people into a couple. We have the introduction of Pyramus and Thisbe, and Bottom, who is one of the actors within the play and wants to play a changeling. Do you remember the Doors song, The Changeling? You gonna see me change. Oh, leaving town. That's the Changeling. And then we have the introduction of enter a fairy on one side and Puck on the other. Puck says, how now, spirit? Whither wander you? And the fairy says, over hill, over dale, through a bush, through briar, over park, over pale, through flood, through fire, I do wander everywhere, swifter than the moon's sphere, and I serve the fairy queen to dew her orbs upon the green. The cowslips tall her pensioners be, in their gold coats spots you see, those be rubies, fairy favors, in the freckles live their savors. I must go seek some dewdrops here, and hang a pearl in every cowslip's ear. Farewell, thou lob of spirits, I'll be gone. Our queen and all her elves come here anon. The king, Puck says, the king doth keep his revels here tonight. Take heed the queen come not within his sight. For Oberon is passing fell in wrath, because that she as her attendant hath a lovely boy stolen from an Indian king. She never had so sweet a changeling. So that's the argument that they have. But what's interesting about the couplets here, and those aren't heroic couplets, they're not iambic pentameter, but they function as almost ballad stanza couplets because they're shorter, and it's like a lullaby. You're being lulled into a kind of dreamlike state. All of the characters speak in a dreamlike state because we're being drugged into the narcotic atmosphere of the Greenwood. We also get a kind of instance of Far Arden. Far Arden, again, that's a Jim Morrison phrase, but the Forest of Arden, the Ardennes in France, where I walked through to get to Rimbaud's house, but the Forest of Arden is the Warwickshire Shakespearean, again, perfect pastoral setting, similar to the Arcadia of this setting, where England stands in, or rather Greece stands in for England, but it's supposed to be the perfect, idyll that we're going to see totally degenerated and deviated from in The Wicker Man and in Midsommar when I get to him in a few minutes. He says, I'm the merry wanderer of the night. So we have spirits who wander through the night in a kind of opiated haze. They pick a flower called love in idleness. It fell upon a western flower before milk, thou purple with love's wounds, and maidens call it love and idleness. Fetch me that flower, the hero I show you thee once. That's the same. It's almost like the same flower in Batman Begins, right? But it's a kind of poppy, but a opiated love drug. Having once this juice, I'll watch Titania when she's asleep, says Oberon, and drop the liquor of it in her eyes. The next thing then she waking looks upon, be it on lion, bear, or wolf, or bull, or meddling monkey, or on busy ape, she shall pursue it with the soul of love. And ere I take this charm off from her sight, as I can take it from another herb, I'll make her render up her page to me. But who comes here? I'm invisible, and I will overhear their conference. So the spirits are spirits of the air. I shall do mischief in the wood, says Demetrius. Let's see. And then Puck gets involved and turns Bottom into a donkey. Now, Bottom is one of the actors, and he comes out of the rehearsal with the donkey's head. So he's Bottom, he's an ass. But it actually turns out that what Bottom exists as a kind of Blakean apocalyptic romantic vision of a sort of Gnostic new man. Like comes from the bottomless deep in a sort of a Neo-Eden in this play. And it's interesting because he's seduced by Titania. Titania, the fairy queen, falls in love with Bottom, but Donkey from Shrek functions more as a kind of fool in King Lear, a sidekick, but a fool, meaning that he speaks truth. But Bottom in this is much more innocent than that. He's seduced by Titania, but he has no real, he's both not himself and completely himself. He's sort of uninterested. Let's see. Fate o'errules that one man holding troth, a million fail, confounding oath on oath. About the wood go swifter than the wind. And then let's see. Listen to this verse. He says, the moon, methinks, looks like a watery eye, and when she weeps every little flower, lamenting some enforced chastity. Tie up my love's tongue. To vow and swear and superpraise my parts, when I'm sure you hate me with your hearts, you both are rivals and love Hermia, and now both rivals to mock Helena, to conjure tear up in a poor maid's eyes with your derision. None of noble sort would so offend a virgin and extort a poor soul's patience, all to make you sport. Hermia in the next scene, enter Hermia. Dark night that from the eye his function takes, the ear more quick of apprehension makes. Wherein it doth impair the seeing sense, it pays the hearing double recompense. Thou art not by mine eye, Lysander, found. Mine ear, I think, it brought me to the ground. But why unkindly didst thou leave me so? And so this is one of the neo-Marxist criticisms of the play when in terms of its deconstruction, that the play functions as some sort of ladies' lib, because the characters often the women in the play will talk about how they could have done something if they were a man, but the difference is that what they want in the end is exactly what they wanted from the beginning. They want marriage and they want pastoral life. They don't want to be separated from man. It's just that they say that it would be easier if they were men when they are scorned. Puck later is talking to, let's see, Puck says, this is still Act 2, Scene 2. Puck says, believe me, King of Shadows, I mistook, did you not tell me I should know the man by the Athenian garments he had on? And so far blameless proves me enterprise that I have anointed an Athenian's eyes, and so far I am glad it so did sort as this their jangling I esteem a sport. Because Puck, who's known as Robin Goodfellow, which is also a kind of a satanic name. It's like Old Nick. I think in later Celtic England, Robin Goodfellow is a nickname for Satan, which Puck certainly is a kind of a trickster in the play. But he's not a trickster in the sense that he's not like Iago. I mean, first of all, he's a sprite. He's not a man. But I think even Ariel functions as more of a magician sprite than Puck does. Puck sort of exists as a one way people think about the sprites and spirits in this play is in a kind of Gnostic universe where you have angels, and then you have fallen angels who turn into demons and devils, and then you have the sprites of the earth, ghouls, not ghouls, but trolls, elves, sprites, fairies, who are kind of take no sides and are in the middle and have a kind of dominion over parts of the earth, but are kind of in between. It's how people think of it, but that's kind of a Gnostic interpretation. Really, I think it's just more of a sort of an allegory for mirth, melancholy, and youthfulness. Yes, Hereditary. Yeah, Hereditary is Midsummer is today. Midsummer is today. In Midsummer today. Today's the first day of summer. I don't know. I saw two things. I don't know. Who said that? Thomas Anderson? Yeah, you might be right. Well, good. We're ahead of the pack. We're ahead of the pack. So let's see. Here's Puck's speech. Puck says, you guys remember, if you're old enough, do you remember the Real World 3? Do you remember Puck in the Real World 3? He's the guy who rode the BMX. And he's the one that Pedro is the one who had the AIDS and that died RIP. And Bill Clinton gave the eulogy for, and Pedro gave that speech about, you'll take your finger, you'll stick your finger in the peanut butter, then you eat the peanut butter, then you stick your finger back in the peanut butter. That's unacceptable, man. And Puck in the real world, the real guy Puck was very Puckish. Like, he looked like Puck. He acted like Puck. Puck says, my fairy lord, this must be done with haste, for night swift dragons cut the clouds full fast, and yonder shines Aurora's harbinger, at whose approach ghosts, wandering here and there, troop home to churchyards, damned spirits all, that in crossways and floods have burial, already to their wormy beds are gone, for fear lest day should look their shames upon. They wilfully themselves exile from light, and must for aye consort with black-browed night. Oberon says, but we are spirits of another sort. I with the morning's love have oft made sport, and like a forester, the groves may tread, even till the eastern gate all fiery red, opening on Neptune with fair blessed beams, turns into yellow gold his salt green streams. But notwithstanding haste, make no delay, we may effect this business yet ere day. I love their hypnotic speech. And let's see. There's a reference to, it's interesting because the play is purely, it's purposefully pagan, but it obviously is a kind of inspiration for Lord of the Rings in terms of its kind of Middle Earth, and again functions allegorically. Except this has specific Christian reference as the in terms of the feast day of Saint John the Baptist, and for Elizabeth, and also there's a reference to 1 Corinthians in here. He says, let's see, this is, Bottom says, the eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen, man's hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report what my dream was. I will get Peter Quince to write a ballad of this dream. It shall be called Bottom's Dream, because it hath no bottom. And I will sing it in the latter end of the play, before Duke peradventure to make it the more gracious. I shall sing it after her death. There's a kind of proto-Tempest reference in here. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. Right? Hell is empty and all the devils are here. Yeah, YouTube just froze. Did you guys get that? I'll say it again because it froze on me. Yo, thank you to Hesher. Whoa, look at that. Big old fat chat, super chat right there from our boy Hesher. Says, love you, Bazed. Hey, love you too, Hesher. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. That's awesome. Everybody give Hesher a heart right there. Thank you so much, Hesher. Really appreciate you. Thank you, my friend. There's also a meta self-reference to the poet here. Shakespeare is often self-deprecating in his plays, and he says, the forms of things unknown, the poet's pen turns them to shapes and gives them to airy nothing, local habitation, and a name. Such tricks hath strong imagination, that if it would but apprehend some joy, it comprehends some bringer of that joy. Or in the night, imagining some fear, how easy in a bush supposed to bear. But all the story of the night told over, and all their minds transfigured so together, more witnesseth than fancy's images, and grows to something of great constancy, but howsoever strange and admirable. And then later, Theseus, when he's watching the play within the play, first of all, I love the contradiction in here. It's full of the dreamlike state of the play is supposed to convey the contradictory nature of reality, fortune, mirth, and melancholy. So, in other words, we experience summer and how we think of our past and the summer of our youth with a mirthful spirit. But in our age, as we get older, we think of it with a tinge of melancholy because it's beautiful, but it's painful. So we're supposed to delight in the moment, but think of, again, Shakespeare's eternal summer shall not fade. And oftentimes in the play, contradictory language will convey that sort of spirit. Like when he says, he mentions hot ice, merry and tragical, tedious and brief. And the play within the play is supposed to convey that, the kind of strange nature of reality, because the fortunes of man can come and go. I mean, the way that Shakespeare's plays can turn from tragedy to comedy just on, at the drop of a dime, as the saying goes or whatever, is interesting. I mean, this happens in Much Ado About Nothing. Remember, Hero and Claudio have fallen out of love because they've been set up by Don John. And so they stage a fake funeral for Hero where Claudio comes and gives a speech talking about how he loved Hero and he'll never love another. And he proves his love in her death, but it's a fake death. So she arises back out of death, metaphorically speaking, literally walks back out of the yawning gulf of the tomb, and they fall in love. And the play ends in a wedding. But it could have gone horribly bad. And this play could also go horribly bad. Lysander, Demetrius, Helena, all these characters could fall out of love with one another and then be lost in the labyrinth of the woods. And some critics have said that the play also functions as a kind of reverse labyrinth, where instead of the Minotaur eating the people at the center of the labyrinth, he gives gifts and they make their way back out. Which is to say that you make your way into unspoiled nature, find yourself, find purpose, find love in an untainted state of grace within the bounty of nature, and then make your way into life. Theseus says his speech was like a tangled chain, nothing impaired, but all disordered. That's beautiful because the play itself is all disordered with the combination of prose and poetry. There's most of the high characters, again, speak in verse. The low characters speak in prose. This is often the case with Shakespeare, especially in like Macbeth or in Timon of Athens. But they make their way out and find order, unity, and variety. So unity in variety is seen in the form plus content equals meaning. The way that the characters speak in a metrical verse is ordered. The low characters speak in prose, like as if everything is chaotic, and they put on a kind of chaotic play. But in this instance, why it's beautiful is because it's merrymaking. Because Theseus, who's the Duke of Athens and the guy for whom they're putting on the play, and then Oberon and Titania see this as a kind of innocent, mirthful youth, even though these are adults doing it, and they find no fault with this. It's an unintended chaos that results in the order of the weddings at the end of the play. And of course, the play ends with Puck and his famous epilogue in Act 5, Scene 2. He says, "Now the hungry lion roars and the wolf behowls the moon, whilst the heavy plowman snores, all with weary task fordone. Now the wasted brands do glow, while the screech owl, screeching loud, puts the wretch that lies in woe in remembrance of a shroud. Now it is the time of night that the graves, all gaping wide, everyone lets forth his sprite in the churchway paths to glide. And we fairies that do run by the triple Hecate's team, from the presence of the sun, following darkness like a dream, now are frolic. Not a mouse shall disturb this hallowed house. I am sent with broom before to sweep the dust behind the door," which combines all sorts of druidical, Celtic symbolism here, mixed in with the way that nighttime lets the spirits run rampant, but that functions as also the nighttime of their love. So So the characters are in the nighttime of their love because they're like Richard III in the winter of his discontent. But when they find, I don't know who keep your mouth closed. I will win you in any debate. Yeah, I don't know who he's talking to. That's the Dom. Okay, I don't debate. Anyway, he ends with his famous speech. He says, "If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend, if your pardon we will mend. And as I'm an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck, now to escape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long. Else the Puck a liar calls. So good night unto you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends." The play ends with perfect grace and harmony and a triple wedding. So that's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Here's what, let me look at this real quick. Here's what Bloom says about Blake. He says, Bottom is Shakespeare's most engaging characters before Falstaff. And we've covered Falstaff because we did the whole Henry ad. And then he said, Bottom is amiably innocent and not very bawdy. Sex and violence exalters really should look elsewhere. Titus Andronicus would be a fine start. We covered Titus Andronicus. In a curious link between The Tempest, Love's Labour's Lost, and A Midsummer Night's Dream, these are the three plays out of 39, because he adds Two Noble Kinsmen, and there's one more. Two Noble Kinsmen is probably that's my least favorite of Shakespeare's plays, because it's clearly written in partnership. He was helping some dude. And he says, where Shakespeare does not follow a primary source. Inventing plot was not a Shakespearean gift. It was the one dramatic talent that nature had denied him. He goes on to say that the dream ends with three weddings and the reconciliation of Oberon and Titania. He says, we might not know all this was an extended and elaborate marriage song if scholars didn't tell us, and from the title on, we do know that it is, at least in part, a dream. It's in the very title. Whose dream? One answer is Bottom's dream, or his weaving, because he is the protagonist of the play. Puck's epilogue, however, calls it the audience's dream, and we don't know precisely how to receive Puck's apologia. Bottom is universal enough to weave a common dream for all of us, except insofar as we are Pucks rather than Bottoms. How are we meant to understand the play's title? C.L. Barber pointed out that Samuel Johnson's error in believing that the rite of May must take place on May Day, since the young went maying when the impulse moved them. We are neither at May Day nor at Midsummer Eve, and so the title probably should be read as any night at all in midsummer. There is a casual throwaway gesture in the title. This could be anyone's dream or any night in midsummer when the world is largest. And then he says Puck is a sublime clown or great visionary. There's no darkness in Bottom, even when he's caught up in an enchanted condition. Puck, his antithesis, is an ambivalent figure, a mischief maker at best, and something weirder also, though the play and Oberon confine him to harmlessness and indeed bring benignity out of his antics. Puck's alternate name in both the play and in popular lore is Robin Goodfellow, more a prankster than a wicked sprite. I just said that. Though to call him Goodfellow suggests a need to placate him, the word Puck or Puck originally meant a demon out for mischief or a wicked man, and Robin Goodfellow was once a popular name for the devil. Yet throughout the dream, he plays Ariel to Oberon's Prospero. Exactly. That's exactly the point I made. And so is under firmly benign control. At the end of the play, Bottom is restored into his external guise. The lovers pair off sensibly, and Oberon and Titania resume their union. One thing about the play is that it clearly also seemed to influence the Goya painting, because we have Titania, the witch, or the fairy queen, in love with Bottom, he has a spell put over him by Puck, and there he is with the donkey head, which this painting right here functions as a kind of antithesis to the Goya painting, right, which is where he looks more like a Baphomet character. But it says, let's see. Let me find the thing about what he says about William Blake. This is interesting. Yeah, William. Okay, he says, for bottom, the eye hath not heard, the ear hath not seen, hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report the truths of his bottomless dream. Like William Blake after him, bottom suggests an apocalyptic, unfallen man whose awakened senses fuse in a synesthetic unity. Synesthesia is the mingling of the senses. So this brings to mind something Mick and I were talking about this earlier, where, it's interesting that gaining knowledge through empirical data, especially through sight, for instance, is kind of antithetical to poetry. The reason poems are poems is because they need to be read and seen on the page and heard. They have to be both. And as it says in the Ezra Pound book, the Ezra Pound critical exegesis, talking about Ezra Pound's luminous word, that the luminous word, which is the best words in the best order of poetry, is a kind of dreamlike language or a language of the afterlife. It's something that is perfect. It's the perfect utterance of language, which is not just a visual sense, not just auditory, it's not just spoken, but it contains all the senses and it transcends all those senses. So, the artifact of language, finding the great artifact of language, for instance, in an archaeological site, is something that gives you a clear indication using your inner imagination for your outer life than does a simple picture. And poems are important for that way. Hey, shouts out to Roscoe P. Cotrain, who drops 50 Canadian. Shouts out to you, homeboy. Thanks for the stream, BLA. You're brilliant in your analysis of and passion for classic literature. Hey, thank you. Really appreciate you. Long-time supporter, big-time supporter. Shouts out to Roscoe P. Cotrain right there. And Harold Bloom ends with the best in this kind are but shadows. And while we might accept this from Macbeth, we cannot accept it from the Duke of Athens. We shadows are but a dream, since the play is a dream in itself. And what's interesting is, again, this might be one of the sources for especially romantic comedies now. Even romantic comedies now, you notice that they still end in weddings. Right, they still either are about weddings and the comedy of weddings, a kind of comedy of errors, or they end in a wedding, a unity between two people. And if they are best comedy, they end in a wedding between two people, banded together by God. Let no man put asunder. So that's a perfect kind of comedy. The divine comedy ends right in heaven, in the ethereal plane. It's not comedy. It's not comedic because it's funny, but it also brings to mind how comedy and mirth and laughing uplift the spirit. Timon of Athens, which is what I'm going to cover very briefly, before I get to Midsummer and the Wicker Man. Timon of Athens is a completely different play. This is a play that seems like Shakespeare was repulsed by his own play or experienced a revulsion because it is sort of disunified or ununified in terms of its structure, and the character rails against humanity as such that it seems to be disparate pieces of verse thrown into a play by someone later. And I don't know if that's the case. Maybe Shakespeare did this on purpose. Maybe this is, when I talked about the Wanderer and the Seafarer and Beowulf and Anglo-Saxon literature, especially with the Wanderer and the Seafarer, scholars will often maintain that it seems like two different speakers there are two different speakers within the poem, as if on the outside we have a Christian monk trying to revise an earlier work by a pagan, because they seem so disparate. But I kind of maintain that it was one speaker, it's one writer, and that is the case in the poems because they're at the crossroads of the world. It's a synthesis between the old world and the new world. These are people who are converted, and we have a kind of pagan Northern Europe recently Christianized. So there are still ideas of fate mixed in with fate and destiny and the Nordic way of life. mixed in with the ubi sunt motif and the where are those who have gone before, and an idea of free will, which seem antithetical to one another, but it seems the case in the poem that there's a synthesis between the two because of the locus. And so I think maybe that's the case in this poem, that it's an experimental poem because it functions as a chaotic statement, almost farcically so, on how the fortunes of man can change, especially upon reliance on other people and friends. And I've said this a number of times, that a kind of life lesson or something that at least I've, that I consider. I don't know if anybody else considers this, but it seems that putting your, you put your friends to the test at your peril, that you hope for the best, expect the worst, because when you put people to the test, they're inevitably going to fail your circumstances. It's ironic that when you need people the most, it's always at the worst point, right? Which seems obvious, but that also the worst point can be such that other people are looking at you from the precipice, and they either don't understand or they don't have the means to support you because of their own circumstances. So you have to make your own way out of it. And so maybe this is Timon's dilemma, that he's so generous to his friends, he gives away everything he has, but we have to sort of determine what's the meaning of this. Does he give away out of the goodness of his heart because he believes in friendship, which he does state at one point? He states how important friends are. I mean, Plato states the importance of friends. Everybody knows the importance of friends. It's just something almost metaphysical that we can't really contain in our minds, the importance of other people, because we're here on earth with other people. The world's populated. But the minute that you put the burden on the other person, you are denying the code of how you gave in generosity, if that makes sense. So Timon's lesson with this and his reaction is that he rails, he goes as hard into hating people as he did in loving them through gifts. So maybe the lesson here is a kind of avant-garde experimental lesson where we're supposed to see that a man not in control of his passions is a dangerous man, even if it's in the positive, right? And that's not to say like a yin-yang, we need to have Zen balance. But there is a certain balance. That's a manly quality. That's an adult quality, right? To be reliable, to be kind of regular. And Shakespeare, yes, Clontarf, I just saw that BLA in case you didn't know, RIP Donald Sutherland. Well, just as a sideline, I'll say, we're so dialed in here, folks. Come on in, caller. Yeah, it is crazy that this is at least the third time this has happened, right? Because I'm dialed in. I'm 11 Stranger Things level dialed in. No, I did this with Cormac McCarthy. We did our whole thing on Cormac McCarthy, and then Cormac McCarthy, RIP, passed away right after I covered The Passenger, and we're talking about his latest novel, with the Dark Passenger, The Passenger. Then I was talking to Frank Kitson and Low Intensity Operations to Jethro, my friends and my family. I think I even made a post about it, and then there he goes. Now he was an old fella too, and then I just did at least 2 streams talking about Donald Sutherland. I talked about him on Jason Burmis on TNT. I talked about him in the last stream. He's in every Seaspiracy movie. He's in The Shadow Conspiracy, the movie I just did with Charles Sheen. I just watched Eye of the Needle. He was in that. He was an old fella. But R.I.P. because I really liked Donald Sutherland. He's he's one of those guys that's so old school that is true Hollywood in the sense that he doesn't really transform who he is on the screen, but he's always fun to watch because he's kind of, as he got older, he got much more authoritarian and watchable. Like when you watch him in Outbreak, you just know he's the bad guy. I didn't think that they should have used him in Hunger Games. I thought he was miscast in that. Not because he couldn't play the character of President Snow, but because I think probably his old age precluded him from really exploring the character. And yes. Yes, exactly. No, but he's great in Eye of the Needle and The Eagle Has Landed and all of the yes, Maddie, exactly. And in all of the especially early 70s. I mean, he played Mr. X and JFK. He's in so many great movies, and the reason he's in those movies is because he looks the part and he's so believable. He's so persuasive when he's talking. Donald Sutherland is best when he's talking. He had a great voice and a great presence. He kind of reminds you of like your great uncle or something. He was classy even when he was playing a villain like in Eye of the Needle is a great movie if you haven't seen it. It's he plays a a Nazi spy in England and Scotland who seduces this woman, and he's got to make radio contact. He gets on this boat. He's got a kind of Marathon Man Laurence Olivier-esque weapon thing going on, a blade that comes out of his sleeve, which is pretty cool. But yeah, he was pretty cool. So this says, let's see, Timon is the most vivid cartoon in the play and almost the only one who matters. That's true. All the other characters, this is so different from Shakespeare because Shakespeare is, really conveys the invention of the human. We know, it's funny when people bring up, I might do a stream on this later with someone, but I try to avoid it because I've discussed it almost every time. It's like Bloom says this about one of his mentors. He says, let's see. He says one of his mentors told him that. Hold on, I gotta find this. Maybe it's in Midsummer Night's Dream. Let's see. One of his mentors told him that when he was younger, before he was academic Harold Bloom, that his analysis of poetical work was going too far. He said, "Oh God, where was this? Now I'm not going to find it. Damn it! Yeah, I'm not going to find it." But that his response was, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going with this because it's faithful to the spirit of the play. And I think it's kind of the same answer to Oxfordians. Oxfordians are the people who push the theory, which came out about 250 years after Shakespeare's death, that he was not there was no Shakespeare, that he was not responsible for his own plays, or that his plays were written by committee, and that it was either Francis Bacon or Edmund de Vere or any of these people. But the problem is that most of the time, and I'm not knocking people who say that because I've looked into it for a long time, and at one point I was very much one of these people. But one of the problems is that this functions not only as a kind of weird meta snobby psyop, but also as a diversion for people who haven't read the plays. And one thing that's clear when you read any work of literature, especially when you read a lot, is the voice of the artist. This can be in painting or in music or in literature. It's in any work. And the difference is that, you can see similarities, for instance, between Marlowe and Shakespeare, but that's because Shakespeare took a lot from Marlowe. They were exact contemporaries before Marlowe was probably killed in a tavern brawl by one of Francis Walsingham's agents. But his mentality and his voice is completely different from Shakespeare. Edmund de Vere, the Earl of Oxford, also has a completely different voice in terms of his writing than Shakespeare does. He was not even a mid-level poet who died 10 years before Shakespeare stopped writing plays. And we have extant verses from these people. Same with Bacon. One of the things about Bacon is that when poetry functions as a cipher for an interior language within the poem, it denies the essence of what poetry is, which is that poetry is not a cipher or a puzzle to be solved. It's not a riddle. It's the best words in the best order, and there's an ethereal beauty that shimmers from the page. And you can see this. You see this in terms of, if you want to talk about code language, you see this in Shakespeare with various words and phrases that he uses throughout his plays. And the problem with writing in a committee is that look at works written by a committee. The only good things that are written by a committee or a body of workers, like a writer's room, is like sitcoms, and they are as silly and usually they don't penetrate into the depths. But that's okay. That's what they're meant to do. You know, they're meant to be kind of superficial. So, you know, with Francis Bacon also wrote, and the difference between Bacon and Shakespeare is that Shakespeare was not a philosopher. He's a poet. So his philosophy comes through in terms of his poetic exegesis. It's not a philosophical text. There's a lyrical quality. There's a lyrical content. And to say that characters were, you know, writing because they didn't want to be identified is kind of silly, because we have those people writing anyway. And what's the other one? This all stems, the Oxfordian theory stems from the fact that people can't believe that Shakespeare could write the things that he did because he couldn't have possibly gone to these places because he didn't go to college. Well, so what? We see now the complete culmination of that. I mean, do you think now that you need to go to college to write something beautiful or to create something? Obviously not. Why is it any different? Just to think that you need to go places to see them for yourself rather than in your imagination, because the plays are all imaginative. They transcend the visual places. Romeo and Juliet transcends Padua, right, and Verona. It transcends those places. They exist in our minds as archetypes for the spirit and for how we live and how we think about love. We don't need to see the stone buildings. You can read about them. Right. If someone describes, you know, Ireland, yes, it helps to see things in the first place, but it's, you know, Shakespeare had an excellent classical education at Henry VIII's school. His father was the mayor of the town. He later became a stockholder in his company. So, you know, I don't know. And it's ironic because people say we know nothing about Shakespeare, and in a sense they're right. We don't know, but that's the strength of Shakespeare, that we don't know about his personal beliefs because he lives through the characters that he creates. So it's important to be faithful to the text, because in the end, I don't even care. I just read the text and I get what the characters say in the play and what's on the page. We don't have to know anything about him. But we actually do know more. We do know more about Shakespeare than most people of that age. I mean, there's no proof that Shakespeare went to that grammar school. I mean, but there's no proof that, you know, there's no proof that I went to school. I mean, you know, another one is that he wrote his signature a bunch of different ways. Well, there are 0 extant copies of Shakespeare's signature, first of all. There are 0. There are none. Do you think that there's going to be copies of your signature in 500 years? That's kind of a silly argument, I know, but it still holds true. There won't be. There won't be any examples. And by the way, my signature looks different every time I write it, and you can't tell the letters that I'm writing. It looks like squiggle. So it's also based on kind of a silly argument. Now, I'm giving kind of a sort of a glib answer to those questions, but that's really about all I care to give on those. But anyway, I mean, who knows? It could be right. It could be right. Maybe there was no guy. I don't know. Maybe it was another guy. But I don't think so. I don't think so, because I have the text in front of me and I'm reading the text. So that's all I got. It says, let's see. Not even Macbeth centers his drama as Timon does. Coriolanus lacks inwardness, but not in comparison with Timon, who lacks not less than everything until he cascades into his first rage in Act 3, Scene 4. when he instructs his steward to invite all the flatterers, leeches, and false friends to a final feast which will consist of lukewarm water and stones in covered dishes. After throwing the water in the faces of his guests and pelting them out with stones, Timon at last touches a rancorous eloquence in his farewell to Athens. So this is from Act 4, Scene 1. He says, "Let me look back upon thee, O thou wall that girdles in those wolves. Dive in the earth and fence not Athens. Matrons, turn incontinent. Obedience fail in children. Slaves and fools pluck the grave wrinkled senate from the bench and minister in their steads. To general filths convert to the instant. Green virginity, do it in your parents' eyes. Bankrupts hold fast, rather than render back. Out with your knives and cut your trusters' throats. Bound servants steal. Large-handed robbers your grave masters are, and pill by law. Maid, to thy master's bed, thy mistress is the brothel. Son of 16, pluck the lined crotch from thy limping sire, with it beat out his brains. Instruction, manners, mysteries, and trades, degrees, observances, customs, and laws decline to your confounding contraries, and yet confusion live. Plagues, incident to men, your potent and infectious fevers heap on Athens, ripe for stroke. Thou cold sciatica, cripple our senators, that their limbs may halt as lamely as their masters. Lust and liberty creep in the minds and mirrors of our youth, that against the stream of virtue they may strive and drown themselves in riot. Itches, blains, sow all the Athenian bosoms in their crop, be general leprosy. He just curses everyone. And then the play ends, actually, you think that watching the play, so here's how he flips things. So people watching A Midsummer Night's Dream, especially upon its premiere, when they heard Pyramus and Thisbe, they assumed, this is going to be like Romeo and Juliet. It's going to be star-crossed lovers and they're going to go. But it actually ends in a happy ending. Here, we assume that, all of his cursing is going to be made well by the time people go and visit him, and the senators offer to bail him out when he's living in his cave. But instead, he doesn't. He just dies. He just dies and leaves this nasty epitaph in an unintelligible language. It's just gobbledygook. And so everybody passes by, and here's the cursed Timon, who once was generous. So it's he's speaking on fortunes here, and especially the unmastery or the looseness of your passions, and how, speaking in double trust, as Macbeth says. So that's Timon of Athens. So should we move on to the Wicker Man? The Wicker Man. Let's move on to the Wicker Man. So the Wicker Man in Midsommar, which function as kind of Jachin and Boaz of the idyllic state gone wrong through sacrifice to the cult. So instead of looking with mirth upon the fortunes of human beings, finding control over your passions and looking to God, we find people denying the commandment about having no other gods before God and making gods of themselves through sacrifice to the cult. Rather than self-sacrifice or looking to Christ's sacrifice, they look to the sacrifice of people to try and make their crops well, or just the blatant death cult in Midsommar of keeping the lineage alive. And all of this is completely inverted, and especially in Midsommar, just blatantly satanic. So the Wicker Man is a great film because it's clever and subtle in terms of its gang stalking and the psyops involved by the entire town, who's all involved in the cult. So the movie begins, first of all, with an epigraph that says, we would like to thank the wonderful Lord Summerisle and the Isle of Summerisle for their for being compatible with this story. Now that's interesting because this is kind of like proto found footage, because there is no Lord Summerisle or Summerisle, but even the outside of the story epigraph kind of makes us think that it's so. And then we get this seaplane flying, through Scotland, and then it's going to make its way to Summerisle, and we get the ocean, and we know we're flying into the outer zone. Okay. And what's really funny is the music in this movie is fantastic. I had the soundtrack. Corn rigs and barley rigs are bonny, I love those happy nights upon the rigs of Annie. It's by this band Magnet. So when I was in my final year of undergrad in Belfast, and I was living with my 4 friends, Rick, Richard, Edward, Eggy Wags, and David, we had one VHS copy that we taped off the telly of The Wicker Man, and especially Edward and I would watch this movie like every day. It was like the only thing we had to watch, and we watched it all the time. And it kind of like made me physically sick. I watched it so many times. But I love the soundtrack to it. And it's got Britt Eklund looking, ooga, honk, honk, humming, swing, ooga. Britt Eklund looks so good in this movie. But all of her parts are dubbed. You can tell that she's not speaking. I think they overdubbed her with some gruff Scottish woman. But Britt Eklund from the Bond movies is in this, and she plays the kind of midnight climax honeypot for Edward Woodward's character. So Edward Woodward is this uptight. He's a copper. He's an uptight policeman from the mainland who's received a letter from a girl named Rowan Morrison, and Rowan, of course, is important in terms of Midsummer and the cult and the druidical Celtic provenance of the movie, because it kind of functions as a wand of protection. But in this, he doesn't know that it's protection for the cult. It's not for himself. Now, Edward Woodward represents the buttoned up, lower middle class working. He's a worker, he's a cop, but he is an established in the Victorian vein Christian from the mainland, and he is rightly horrified by what he sees when he gets to the island. First of all, he lands his plane and he calls to the old fellows up on the shore, hey, bring me the dinghy. Bring me the dinghy. Oh, you're in the wrong place here. You might want to go to the Isle of Skye or Mole of Kintyre. You're in the wrong place. I have authority from the crown. As you can see, I am a policeman. Bring me the dinghy. So they go out and they bring him the dinghy. He comes in. He starts questioning them about this missing child. And this is really, very True Detective. In fact, the movie reminds me of, there's a place in Virginia that's like this. There's a place in Virginia called Tangier Island that I've never been to Tangier. I have a personal story about Tangier Island from a family member that I think I told on stream one time. I don't know if I should tell that or tell it again, but it's pretty funny. But Tangier Island is, shouts out to my friend Paul. He was writing a screenplay about this. Tangier Island is this crazy place in the I think it's in the eastern shore of Chesapeake Bay, where it's sinking. It keeps getting submerged more every year, kind of New Orleans style. But it is populated by basically a group of people that came over with the first ships from England, and they still speak a kind of Elizabethan vernacular. It's like time out of mind. It's like a completely different world. And they've maintained this through their weird bloodlines and lineage. Everybody kind of has the same 2 names in the town. They've opened it up to tourists unusually, like over the years, I guess, because of the economy. But it used to be, this is where my family story comes in. It used to be that if you got caught up around there or with anybody having to do with there, it was extremely dangerous and weird. And you didn't want to be there. It was not welcome to outsiders. But this place, Summer Isle, kind of reminds me of that, because from the very beginning, Edward Woodward is not welcome in this place, even though we're rooting for him the whole time. But something terrible is happening to him. Even if you watch this on the first day, has anybody not seen this movie? So spoiler, because I have to do that in order to analyze the film, and that's the whole point of it, is that he's being gang-stalked purposefully throughout the movie when he gets to this place, and he has no connection to the outside world, just like the people there have no connection. So Lord Summerisle is played by Christopher Lee, and Christopher Lee is absolutely perfect for this movie. He said that it was the best screenplay he ever read, and it was his favorite movie that he ever took part in, because Christopher Lee plays Lord Summerisle all the scenes, especially the Summer Isles castle, were not shot on an island. They were shot, I think they were shot in the mainland Scotland. But in fact, Summer Isles castle was on the back of the like 10-pound note from the Bank of Scotland until like 2015, and it was given. I hate the word gifted. Why did I just say that? Shit, I hate the word gifted. It's just given. See, even I said it. Damn it, darn it. An American bought it and then wrote it in the will to give it to partly, I think, to Eisenhower as a kind of reward for post-World War II, for World War II activities. And he visited like 4 times, but it was on the back of that. Anyway, so Lord Summerisle says blatantly, because Edward Woodward, the cop, questions him about this. I'm kind of skipping forward here. He says, are you aware of the things that are going on in this island? These people are not Christian, and the things that they're teaching and the things that they're doing are absolutely depraved. Because he's looking for this missing kid, right? True detective style. He gets a letter from her, and he gets a picture of this girl named Rowan Morrison, and he's going looking for her because, she says she's been taken or something. So he's going to look for her. He's the one guy who went to go look for her. Good. And nobody seems to know who she is. They say, "Oh yes, I know her mother, but that's not her daughter." And you're very confused. He goes to a school and he sees that the school marm, the teacher, is teaching them the rites and rituals of the druidical tradition. So they everything they do, they get to a maypole, and there's this creepy maypole dance. Like there's a guy singing the maypole. This boys dance around this maypole, and the guy says, and in that ground there was a tree, and on that tree there grew a branch, and on the branch there grew a man, and in the man he had a grave, and from that grave they grew a tree. Right? Total creep. So what the teacher is teaching here, and she says to Edward Woodward, is that they don't believe that she has died, if she's died, that her spirit, I guess a kind of, what does he say in Faust? Pythagoras metempsychosis, that she transcended her bodily form and went into a hare or like a rabbit or a tree or the ground or the grass, and that she is now part of nature. And we're going to see this in Midsommar a lot more. This is the worship of the green man, right? This is the green man who appears in a kind of Celtic pagan spirituality, as Christopher Lee says, the old gods. So he tells the story of how Summer Isle was founded, that it was basically a bunch of people stacking mud, and that his grandfather, Christopher Lee, or whoever, this dude with Al Crowley's granddad, Moby Dick looking Ahab beard, Victorian style, a free thinker, got to the island. And free thinker for the Victorians means he's a pagan, or he's outside of the bounds of Christianity. He is he's like a Darwin type who's interested in kind of evolutionary spirituality, where the old gods will be, and he can basically do what thou wilt. So he found through crossbreeding apples, this like apple that would grow. So we get a biblical allegorical reference here. An apple that would grow in the temperate zone where Summer Isle is located, and the climate and the ground is fertile enough for this thing to exist. And that's how they make their money, by selling Summer Isle apples. Right. So the apple functions as obviously a kind of temptation for other people to come to the island or to buy into their spiritual paradigm. And that Summer Isle's dad then furthered this when he kicked off a bunch of people left, and the new people came, the people that wanted to be in this cult. And from this, basically they obviously came here or to Summer Isle because they wanted to do whatever they wanted. They wanted absolute liberation from the rules and strictures of decency and morality. And they wanted to basically have a kind of free love. And the movie's made in 1973, so it has the veneer of a hippie place, but it's something that's older. This is like what the hippies are into, right? Free love, this kind of utopia. But it's still lorded over by an establishment lord, an establishment summer isle, but his job is basically maintaining the social order through adherence to the pagan rituals. And he tells him that blatantly. He's blatantly blasphemous, and he's not blatantly satanic in the movie, but he is blatantly blasphemous. So it's, rather than going into a pure Satanism in the movie, it really goes into a kind of a pantheism, right? And then Edward Woodward goes throughout the island. He's looking. He tries. They try to honeypot him in the Green Man, which is the bar where Britt Eklund is like singing on the other side of the wall. Pyramus and Thisbe style. There's a wall that separates them. And then the next morning she comes in and she says, "You never visited me last night." And he says, "I don't believe in it before marriage," he says. And so that is why he's there. That's obviously why he's there. He's the pure V-card sacrifice walking into this willingly. And he's going to be told that at the end, that he had to use his free will to willingly go into this, even though the outer context is that he's looking for this girl. They didn't make him do any of the things that he did. He did them willingly until he's trapped. And the horrifying scenes are where we see, first of all, there's like naked women dancing around, jumping over the fire. And there's something in this druid book. I got this book on druids right here. Pretty basic book. But it talks about the firewalk rituals. And what they say is basically, there's a pregnant woman and they are jumping over the fire to let the fire inside you, let the baby grow. Like, so that they can have this fire of human consciousness dancing in a Neolithic stone circle, where we continuously see circles and sigils throughout this. And you notice all of the masks on the walls, and these are all varieties of animals that are all associated with Celtic spirits. There's the March hare, and there's a weird kind of Welsh dragon that swallows people up in the parade and then like spits out eggs. And then there's the salmon of knowledge, which becomes a Christian symbol for the Irish Christians. But here it's the salmon of knowledge, like as in all of these animals are, promoting human beings to take on the mask of the beast, various beasts, to live in a state of nature, a la Midsummer Night's Dream. Except the difference is that this isn't pristine nature where they're looking for goodness and virtue in a state of mirth. Their mirth is all mocking. It's all mocking and looking at the face of the person that they've duped, who is Edward Woodward. So, yeah, I like, for instance, I like a lot of this stuff. Like, I like Jethro Tull's Songs from the Wood. I like, have you seen Jack in the Green? Right, the Jack in the Green is a midsummer ritual symbolism, which is not, I don't like that. I just like the song. But it's like a thing that had a revival in Victorian England in the 18th century and then into Victorian England. I think today's the day Victoria ascended to the throne, I think. Today's the day, 1837, I think. Today's the day she was crowned. That's weird. Somebody fact check me on that. Was today her coronation in 1837? She was 1837 in 1901. But anyway, so you get inside of a Green Man, and you have various ritual dances and stuff. And I'm sure the people in Victorian England saw this innocently enough for the most part. It's kind of just heritage and stuff and folk. Of course, now it's a bunch of damn. You've got Burning Man, and you've got I'm sure there's some wild fire-eating neo-earth neoprene people running around at the solstice at Stonehenge. Remember, Stonehenge was just a pile of rocks. Do you remember that? Like in the 80s, it was literally a pile of rocks, and then they set it back up into the stone circle. And I think it was a bigger complex than that. But that's certainly an altar for a druidical ritual sacrifice. But that's what they're doing in this. And yes, it's weird that I knew that. I'm dialed in. And so, anyway, what happens is, Edward Woodward goes along on this tale that they're weaving, where they keep lying to him until finally the horrifying scene is he knocks out this this creep. First of all, this creep bartender who's like, yes, well, Edward Woodward, yes, this creepy bartender. He like knocks him out because Britt Eklund puts a sleep potion totem beside his bed, which is a disembodied hand, and it's set on fire. This is like in, what's the thing Jamie and I covered, the Lost Symbol. This occurs in the Lost Symbol. This is also, it's also the Red Hand of Ulster, but it's a Masonic symbolism. It's it's in the Lost Symbol, and it's at the beginning of the Polanski Macbeth. Remember that? At the beginning of the Polanski Macbeth movie, which was made in, I think, that was 1970, financed by Hugh Hefner. The beginning of the movie, the prologue, is unspoken, and it's before the witches say, fair is foul, foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air, which is to say they invert the normal rhythm of speech. They make it, pentameter, trochaic. They make it trochaic. So it's stressed, unstressed, rather than unstressed, stressed, and everything they say is the opposite. It's chaotic and opposite. It's like backmasking almost. And they bury a totem in the ground, which is a disembodied hand with a dagger and a noose, and it's got, seal it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. And then that is where they will bring about the battle where Macbeth will unseam the guy from the nape to the chops, and then Duncan will put the whole thing in motion. But it's the same thing in this. They put the disembodied hand beside the bed, and he knocks it. He's fake sleeping. He wakes up. He knocks this hand off the bed. He knocks out the dude. He puts on a jester costume, and he makes his way into the parade. And then the horrifying scene really is when you see coming over the horizon, the women are being chased as part of the ritual, and you hear this bump, bump, like a tabor playing, or like this in Northern Ireland they have lambeg drums, but this is a tabor, kind of tabor and pipe, and they're all kind of pirouetting and doing traditional dances. There's some Morris dancers, and there's a set of people in line. So there's the king of the ritual, who's Christopher Lee, who is a Baphomet figure. He's Christopher Lee, but he's dressed in a witch's wig with a dress, and he's dancing with a scythe. And behind him is the big dragon guy swallowing up people and spitting out eggs, and then the Morris dancers, and then the other men. And they're supposed to chase down the women, and this is going to be a sex ritual. So the jester is second in this with the dragon. He makes his way into it. That's Edward Woodward in disguise. And he gets fussed at by Christopher Lee at one point. Pirouette more gracefully. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're not even dancing correctly. Even though they know it's him. And then they do their ritual. Then they get to a place. Everything's kind of a ritual in this. They get to their place. This is, it's either May Day or Midsummer. They get to this place where they make a Star of David with their swords, the Morris dancers, and everybody has to pop up their head, and it could get lopped off. This is part of the ritual they mentioned earlier in the thing, and it's a game of chance. Everybody has to do it. Till finally a girl does it, gets her head lopped off, but of course she's got a bottom mask. She's got a donkey mask or something. She gets that chopped off. It's all part of the game. Then they make their way along the seashore. They give dedicate a libation to the god of the sea, where he axes a big barrel of beer. Suppose it's made from the apples. Suppose it's some sort of cider, and it's all foaming. And they make their way up the rocks until finally he sees Rowan, who's alive, and he says, "Rowan, you're alive!" And he goes after her. You wonder at this point, when he goes after her to save her, and then the other people are standing there, why he doesn't just like that lady is standing there. The lady, the weird school marm is standing there, like, why didn't he just, oops, and then oops, Christopher Lee, and then take her, and then go, and then get in the plane, and then leave, right? I guess because they know that he's not going to do that. He's too held to the strictures of his order and to the rules, even though up to this point he's pretty much done what's necessary to get her. And then, of course, that ends up also being a joke. Rowan takes him through Plato's cave until he comes out the other side into the other world, where now Christopher Lee is standing there, or sitting there, in his Lord Summerisle costume. He's gotten rid of it, and the school marm is there, and this other woman is there. and they say, "Oh, we must begin the ritual and feed the wicker man." And this is another example of where in movies, you know, the just like in reality, and this is probably extremely truthful, that good guys oftentimes are too held to their fear of offending, right, or manners or breaking the rules to do what's necessary to win or to survive or to save the damsel in distress or whatever it is, right? They will do everything up to that point that is antithetical to their own safety and security to get the mission accomplished. But then when it comes down to it, they can't believe when they're presented with it that the bad thing is actually going to happen. And so that's what happens. He can't believe that when they take him, they're going to actually put him in this Wicker Man statue. And he certainly can't understand what's going to happen to him after that. But anybody watching this, you know, anybody I feel like with discernment or who's a grown person or who understands good and evil will feel that thing in their gut and know from the signs and will say, no, they are going to do this thing. And you gotta do whatever it takes to get out. Meaning save the girl, you know, and get out. These people are gonna do the awful thing that you think they're gonna do. So they lock him up in the Wicker Man and they set it on fire and he burns to death. And that's the sacrifice. So the reason this is actually a great movie is because it's obviously the bad guys win. Okay, that sucks. The bad guys win, but that makes it a better movie because it's truthful to the fact that when you have one against many and you are hampered by your misunderstanding of what these people are capable of doing, because I think this is real. This is true. It's truthful. I mean, it's a movie, but I think this is absolutely truthful that this stands for certainly Neolithic and pagan rituals. It's based on truth. And we see all sorts of these things happening. I mean, we all know the examples of this. So whether it's a Wicker Man or a big owl or a statue of Bob, or, you know, the big stone statue, and, you know, or it's you know, Moses coming down from the mountain and they're throwing people into the flames. This happens. So you have to follow through all the way in order to crush that thing. Like when you're watching that movie, The Long Night, that I talked about at the beginning, when they're driving in to the place and they keep seeing these like True Detective style wooden fucking sigil things thrown up with, like, you know, snake skin, and, you know, it's like and it looks like a kind of some sort of witch put this thing up. There's like a damn piece of hair in it and a dead squirrel hanging there. Tear that thing down, dude. You know, that thing's gotta go. That thing's gotta burn. Get rid of that thing. That's not local art. That's not you know, some sort of art piece by the locals, as they say in that movie. Oh, it's just he says in the movie, oh, it's just the rednecks doing their art. Well, first of all, that has never been a thing. That's never the case. I can't think of any so-called rednecks doing art projects, first of all, like in public like that. That's just not a thing. They wouldn't stand for that sort of thing. So get rid of that damn thing. So he gets burned in the thing, and he gets burned as a sacrifice. And the movie is a good movie because it shows the lengths and the extent to which these, you know, the cult will go, led by an establishment figure. An establishment figure being true to the rituals that they adhere to. So that's the Wicker Man. God, that song by Britt Eklund, though, in the movie. Hey, oh, who is there? No one but me, my dear. That's a good song. It's a good song. Yo, BM Duper shouts out to you. Sends $5. I came late to stream. I was out looking for my wife. She was on the She was like Adele. You were imagining Adele. What? I like the way she sings. What? What? I like Adele. What? I imagine her with an apple in her mouth. Yeah, I like Adele. And great pipes, too. And great pipes, too. Shouts out to BM Duper right there for that $5. Thank you, BM Duper. Yeah, she was spiteful like Ruth, right? Had a radio down for landing instructions. She was spiteful. She was spiteful. So next movie is MIDSOMMAR. Hey, don't forget to send those super chats in if you want. You can also support me via the links right here. You can like and share the stream. Please like and share the stream. You can also send me some links. Send me some super chats right here. This really helps. Let's see. You can hit me up with that PayPal or Cash App if you are so inclined, if you feel like it. Appreciate your generosity. As always, you guys are the best. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jethro. Thank you, everybody, for dropping those. Thank you to Mixkey. Hey, shouts out to everybody out there. Thank you for being here tonight. 77 in the chat. Happy MIDSOMMAR. Happy solstice. All right, so Jethro says, did y'all like MIDSOMMAR? Well, okay. This movie is filthy. It really is. It's a difficult watch. Have you seen... Give me a thumbs up if you've seen MIDSOMMAR. Have you guys seen this movie? So this is Ari Aster. Ari Aster. This is like the most A24 movie. So I actually like Hereditary as a film. That, thank you for those. You guys have seen it. Yeah, Mel has seen it. Chris has seen it. Enfant Terrible has seen it. Yeah, Jethro, I need to see Beau is Afraid. I actually like Hereditary because I think Hereditary is a solid, cohesive piece of work that accomplishes what it's doing, which is showing the Paimon ritual, and it's probably more truthful in terms of its depiction, especially with the universal and the particular, right? With the outer house and the inner house, with the woman, with the mother, it has DID. The spirit of the Northwest, the sigil in the corner with the bed, only with one leg of the bed in it. The sort of Baphomet creatures in it, the gang stalking, and then finally at the end, the literal apotheosis of Paimon with the shimmering music and the headless devotees. I mean, it's about as dark as you can get, and I thought it was well done and pretty cohesive. It is a really, really solid horror movie. Now, I don't care about horror movies in terms of like, I never liked horror movies when I was younger. I only like them now because I think with cinema has been so, it's been so weird for a while that really the best movies in terms of truth are coming out with horror movies. We're not getting very many dramatic movies where that's the case, at least not now. So for the past like 10 years or so, we've gotten a lot out of the horror genre. And to me, scary is probably not, it's not this, I don't know what other people consider scary anymore because everybody is so desensitized, especially young people. Scary is not like necessarily body horror or anything like that. It's the shock. I'm not talking about jump scares. I'm talking about the fact that, like Edward Woodward in The Wicker Man, you're seeing something that you imagined or imagined in the depths of your soul, but you never thought would be the case, but there it is presented to you. And Hereditary does that for me. I mean, when what's his name, her husband gets burned by the book, I mean, that's not scary. I thought it was shocking and is well done. When she's sawing off her head, I thought that was scary because she's in the corner of the room. But I think the scariest parts of that movie are where we clearly see the cult, because Toni Collette has to go and see this cult, right? She gets roped into like a grief counseling support group by this witch woman, right? And we see them in a circle, and then we see like the teacher, the history teacher, who looks like he's also in the cult. And when you look in the corners of the rooms and you see figures in darkness, and then when the light switches and the lights are on and they're all standing around, that to me is so quick. It's quick, and you can't believe that that's happening. And especially the end of the movie, it's so horrifying to me. and I'm not scared, but I'm horrified that this is not just in someone's imagination, but it's probably very truthful to the evil spirit of the thing it's depicting. So Midsommar, I think, is like that in a number of ways. But the shock and my problem with this movie is that the shock and horror of the movie is too. We anticipate it too much. There's too much anticipation. So the movie begins basically with what's this girl's name? Frankenina Huff or something. What's her damn name? Puffanama Huff. What's her damn name? What's the name of the main actress in this? The Dune girl, Dune 2 girl. She's a Jawa. Florentina Puff. Florentina Wolf, okay, is a Jawa who is upset, and we see that her boyfriend has a group of real beta dudes who are sitting around a bar talking about relationships. What are you talking? Does this happen? I mean, look, man, okay, so first of all, like, I get it. It's a movie. And in a way, it's cool because it is an interpretation and an inversion of the trope of a romantic comedy where guys sit around talking about their relationships to mirror what the girls are doing. But this is clearly not a romantic comedy, and we know it's not going to be comedic. Even though, I just realized this, even though there is an inverted comedy that it does occur, because although there's no wedding to end this movie, it does end with the inverted triumph of the female protagonist in a wedding-like ceremony. So maybe that's one of the more sinister things about this, that the ritual actually gets accomplished and works, and the cult itself is happy, which is why the building where the ritual takes place is it's obviously a pyramid, right? But we see like. We see that as like a pyramid or an inverted pyramid where things are top down and bottom up. So it functions in a true kind of occult, weird hieroglyphic style in terms of the structure of the narrative. So that kind of makes sense. And also, the movie begins. There's a lot of breathing in this movie. If you haven't noticed, so remember that. Inspiration is Genesis, right? Inspiration is in Genesis that God breathes Adam into life, right? That's an inspiration. He inspires. So inspiration is from God. And then, again, like I mentioned, God moving over the face of the water, Scripture breathes. Here we have a lot of horrified breathing, like leading to a heart attack. There's a lot of this in the. Here's how I can describe this movie. Midsommar is a lot of. No. It's a lot of that. That's the movie. Drone sounds with wow. There'll be a lot of Ari Aster movies always have this wow, shimmering synthesized horns over a deep droning bass. So she's breathing a whole lot in this movie, and the breathing really gets bad because they're sitting around the boys are sitting around talking about their theses, and how they're having, what's his face, redhead, is having problems with Danny. Okay, so I guess she's Danny because also again there's a typical sort of Baphomet-esque interpretation into this. They get that when they go to the cult in Sweden, where the guy says, "Do you like it? I'm wearing dress, yeah? Do you like it? It's kind of feminine, swooshy, swooshy. You like? It's very weird, yeah?" All right, so the plot is basically that this girl, Danny, has lost her parents and her sister because her sister wasn't answering her text messages and is clearly depressed, and then hooks up a damn 332 foot hose and duct tapes it to her face and turns on the car exhaust on the Trans Am in the garage. And then, Sylvia Plath's her parents and herself. And she's got an Odin eye. Her one eye's good, her other eye's, yeah. Right. And mixed over with a lot of slow motion firemen walking through the house and a lot of, oh, no, all that. It's terrible. The movie starts off shocking you, really deeply psychologically shocking you into just the worst kind of aesthetic terror dream that you're going to have. And so, then she's saved by her boyfriend, and then they're sitting around talking, oh, I'm going to go do my thesis on the Hjorga cult or whatever in Sweden. And one of the guys that's with them is a Swede, and you don't trust him from the damn beginning. So they're going to go to Sweden on an extended vacation for a month with this guy's family, who's traditional Swedish or whatever, mixed in with a whole lot of Uthark runes. I'll get to that in a minute. And then they're going to get there. Here's the plot simplified. They're going to get there. They're going to be interested. They're going to be introduced into the ways of this ethnic group in Sweden. Then the four buddies are going to start disappearing. There's 6 of them. There's the 4 buddies or whatever is going to disappear. And then one of them is going to Crowley sex magic with one of the native women. They're going to, carry on their lineage. And then the traumatized girl is going to be the May Queen. She's going to win. And then the cult is going to sacrifice a bunch of people in end of a 90-year circle. And they're going to sew up a dude in a bear, set the pyramid on fire, along with 2 willing participants and 2 unwilling. And then she's going to smile about it, and the movie's over. That's the movie. What else do you need to know? Okay, well, first of all, in her house, she's got this picture of a modern art piece of a bear. So you already get Chekhov's gun. You get Chekhov's bear on the wall. And then, and that seems to be that she's the chosen one. She's seeded for this May Queen position. What happened to all the May Queens? I don't know. Didn't you listen to the Zeppelin fucking song? I did an analysis of it. Why didn't you watch my stream on it? You would never have gone to Sweden. Right? If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. No, you should be alarmed. I like the song, of course. I like Zeppelin, but in terms of like worshiping the dang May Queen and becoming the Gnostic Sophia principle, you're screwed. Don't do any of this. She gets there, and the guy and the Swedish guy's like, "Oh yeah, welcome to God, yeah, welcome to the cult." They immediately take mushrooms. Now the weird part about this is that, she don't want to take it because she's obviously just been traumatized by this. Her family's all gone. And the boyfriend wants to stick with her, but then they do it anyway, and they're sitting on the grass, and oh, here comes an outsider. That part was probably pretty true to life. The Swede guy with them is saying, can you feel how nature is breathing? Everything is connected in a mechanical fashion. It's all in order. Now that's true. That's true. But his point is that, and we see this slow apotheosis because we see her vision. She looks down and she sees grass growing through her hand. So she is going to become the May Queen like the Green Woman. She's going to be the embodiment of the pantheistic cult spirit. But they go far beyond Wicker Man. They go into total Satanism, mixed in with their sort of weird pantheistic runic spell cult. And they're told that there are cycles of life in the cult. They come across a rune stone. By the way, the rune stone and what the guy is reading when they're in the car, he's reading, it says like the Uthark ideology of the Nazis. The Uthark is, this is probably pretty esoteric for people, but I wrote my book of poems. It's called Runes. So which is about megalomania, but the Futhark is the runic alphabet, which begins with a so-called F-looking rune. They don't exactly transliterate, but it begins with like an F rune, and the Uthark removes the F and places it in a different part of the alphabet. And because there is a circle within the circle, within a cult inner circles that believe that there's a secret coded language within the runes and that everybody else is using the wrong one and that this is a cipher. So that's what the cult is doing. They have a secret knowledge. They have a secret cult knowledge. And this determines all their rituals and all their way of life, which is obviously they think that they are being in service and that they are willingly giving to each other, but all they're doing is making themselves transcendent into gods for their own liberation. These are Crowley people. So, like, for instance, when the teenager wants to, volunteers to be stoned into the river and they're going to throw the kid in the river or whatever, they actually stop that, so that's good. But this is just like total, it's pure Crowleyan brainwash shit, right? And they explain that the cycles move according to seasonal cycles. So you're born in spring, until you're 16 or whatever. Then when you're 30, 16 to 32, you're in the summer of your life. 32 to 48, you're in the autumn of your life when you start becoming a mentor to others. And then 48 to 72 is when you're in the winter of your discontent. And then they say, what happens at 72? And the guy goes, and that's exactly what happens, because they're eating at a runic designed dinner. They're all in their, false white cult clothes. And these two old, the two old timers come out and one of them stands up and starts speaking in runic tongues. And the guy starts speaking. And then they go up to the top of the mountain. And that's when the horrible scene occurs where the woman does a bunch of hand signs and then jumps down onto the slab altar stone. And she's, her fucking face comes off of her body. It's pretty horrible. And they're all shocked. And this actually works well in the movie because it is so shocking. But we've already been shocked into terrible things. So that's purposeful. But it's also lessens the shock of what happens, even though we're seeing body horror here now. And then the guy stands up and he jumps. But he jumps pencil style, breaks his legs, and they come out with a big Viking mallet, and they three people crush his head, and then they burn him. And then what happens is that this ends up traumatizing the rest of the group into their various delineations of what's happened. So the black guy wants to do his thesis on the cult, and he can't understand that by looking at the cult book, which is scribbled over by a beautiful slow boy, and that the book never ends. We are still writing our own story. Okay. And they ask about the creeper thing, and the guy readily admits, no, we made him that way. He says they made him into a creeper because now part of this is weird because being mental like that means you are closer to God, right? But they have made him that way. They want to, because in the pantheistic satanic spirit, they want to control their destiny, control nature. They want to be one with nature, but they want to make themselves into gods. So they creepily made him that way, right? Yes, Midsommar was bananas. It's nasty. It's nasty. It's a nasty. Oh, you went with Jay and Jamie. Jay, Jamie, Spore, Hesher, and TS Media all went to Midsommar. I can't imagine what happened when that old man stood up and he was going, oh no, I'm getting forward, getting. And then they crushed his head with that Viking mount. I mean, so anyway, so the beautiful slow boy is the Odin seer of the group, and he is writing their story, which is just chaos. It's chaos on the page. They have this runic, synthetic mockery of their own scripture painted over with flames and chaos. And then they're going to frame the guy for stealing it, and then they end up malleting him on the head, so he becomes the first guy. Then there's two other guys. One of the other guys that gets sacrificed is one of the guys in that movie Saltburn that I covered. That guy gets it horrible because when he sees the ritual happen, he's like, get the fuck out of here. You're just standing there. Why's everyone standing there? And he and his girlfriend try to leave. Buddy, you don't tell him you're leaving. Just get the fuck out. Just run. So here's my advice, by the way. If you're ever in a Wicker Man MIDSOMMAR situation, okay, you got to do like I've been training myself to do since I was 7 years old, since I was 4 years old in the pool. Okay, you escape to the water. So Edward Woodward in the Wicker Man should have escaped. He should have gone into the sea, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he swims forever outwards or he waits till dark or whatever. It doesn't matter the cold. Just go into the water. Nobody's going to chase you in there. So the guys at MIDSOMMAR, even though it looks like they're landlocked, I mean, they're in Sweden. There's water. It's a Viking culture. You know there's water somewhere. Just keep on running till you get to a body of water, get in the river, get in the water, and just let the tide take you. Just get out, but get in the water. The water is going to save you. Instead, he's like, we're leaving. We're going to leave tomorrow. Buddy. So guess what happens to him? Well, he gets suspended over a chicken coop with a blood eagle. He gets a literal blood eagle. Right. His girlfriend's gone. I think they make her into some sort of husk of a jester or something. The jester again, right. Yo, Kristen says, I clipped the Oxfordians versus Stratfordians part BLA. We were discussing the topic on Mr. Westford's channel earlier today. Great breakdown. Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Crystalline out there, Slow Boy Whiteboard. Hey, shouts out to everybody out there. Thanks for joining me on this. What is this, a weekday? Is this a weekday? MIDSOMMAR night. A Midsummer Night's Dream. So, anyway, dude gets blood eagled. They turn her into a husk of a jester or some shit. I don't know. The other guy, the weird-looking guy who was in... I don't know, the other guy, the guy who is kind of a jester. Maybe that's the jester because he kind of functioned as a jester. He's like, oh, he's the guy that when they were in the car ride to the cult place, you can hear him in the background talking about various news, and he's kind of funny. He's kind of the funny guy in the group. You know he's going to go, right? He's hitting his dap pen. Brother, you are not going to make it. So anyway, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Melly says he urinated on the sacred old tree stump. That scene was ridiculous, dude. He's out there, and he's, first of all, I mean, don't you know these people are going to be crazy? Can't you? Who goes to this and just, this whole movie is what happens to Edward Woodward in Wicker Man. The whole movie is about him, is about the people just not coming to terms with what they've seen is reality. That the absolute truth of the darkness of the cult is readily apparent. They watched two people jump off of the runestone onto their face. The woman's face came off, and they still were shocked. They still were shocked into their normality. Right? Just, get out. So he goes over and fouls the Yggdrasil, which is just a tree stump lying down there in the glade or whatever, while they're all picking daisies backwards and making hair pies and shit. I mean, it's crazy. And so he gets whacked or whatever. And then finally, and they're in this imitation runic church mead hall thing, which has everything has images and demonic iconography all over them. They even walk past the bear at one point in a cage. What's that bear doing? Oh, I don't know. It's just a bear. It's just a bear. Dude gets sewn up in it. First he does the Crowleyan sex magic with a bunch of naked hereditary women standing around him going, and then, right? They give him all these daffodil drugs or whatever. It's to loosen your inhibitions. Don't breathe that shit in. It's kind of like when they go to the apothecary in the Wicker Man and he's got all this nasty stuff in jars everywhere. Looks like my biology teacher's back room. That guy had dang jars of human beings in there. He was like, "What? You don't know deoxyribonucleic acid? It stunk." Thing stinks. So anyway, they sew him up in the carcass of the bear, which is, I suppose, is, this is like a natural transhumanism. So instead of the melding of man and machine, like we saw in the black hole, right, with Maximilian's shell being in the shell of Maximilian the robot, which is crazy. That's still insane that they did that in the movie. The actor Maximilian Schell is embodied and melded with a robot, a death robot named Maximilian in hell, in the black hole by Disney. This one, he is sewn up into the symbol of predation and nature in the bear and burned alive with his head looking out of the stomach in a yellow pyramid. And the end of the movie is the apotheosis of what's her name? Florence McGruff, or whatever her name is, looking at this and laughing. She's laughing. So she is now fully embodied as the May Queen, laughing at misfortune and the misfortune of others, and the screaming is, and fire and unwilling sacrifice to a demonic cult god demon is her apotheosis. And it ends with the shimmering score, just like in Hereditary. And so that is the culmination of the long day without night for the cult, making themselves into a forever group that they will live forever through nature with the picking of their May Queen. So that's Midsommar. Was that good? I don't know. Hey, shouts out to everybody right there. Let me get to some super chats real quick. Shouts out to Ethan right there. He sent $7. He says, for an ice cold Red Bull. Thank you so much. Thank you. I could use an ice cold Red Bull. Yo, please give to the Red Bull Fund, y'all. You can super chat, or better yet, you can hit those links. You can hit me up with one of these links. Yes, please do that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. I could use an ice cold Red Bull. I could use an ice cold pack of mediums. An ice cold new copy of the book Journey to the End of the Night, which I'm trying to get. Shouts out to Ethan. Thank you so much for that super chat. Really appreciate you. Thank you to everybody out there. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, Donegal tweed jacket me for sure. Hey, new car me, new Forerunner me, new OJ Bronco me. Shouts out to Jason right there for that $8 PayPal. Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate you. You are the best. Thank you. You are the greatest. Shouts out to those super chats tonight, especially Hesher for that big one, that $100. Thank you to Hesher. Shouts out to Roscoe P. Cotrain for that 50. Shouts out to BM Duper for that $5. Don't forget, you can grab memberships, and I need to do another membership stream, so I'll be doing that soon, just for the members. Also, I got a stream coming up on Billy Bob Thornton, on Billy Bob Thornton movies that I'll be doing. I'll be doing wholesome movies, especially wholesome 80s movies. Let's see. Shouts out to PC Baz for that big time sponsor stream. Appreciate you right there for that big time sponsor stream earlier today. So tonight we covered Midsummer Night's Dream, Timon of Athens, Druids. I didn't really talk about Robin Hood, but Robin Hood comes into this because Robin Goodfellow, Robin Hood, May Queen is Maid Marian, but this is in the best sense. And this is look, you should read books like this. You should go back to the age-old books about adventure and virtue. And, I haven't told you maybe I'll do that in a different stream, my story about going to Sherwood Forest, going to Nottingham and going to all the Robin Hood sites and walking through Yorkshire when I was in England. Oh, I got to read. Oh, also, I did Harold Bloom, The Invention of the Human. Coming up, I'll be doing a stream on this. This book is excellent so far. I've only read a portion of it last night when I started it. But this book is excellent. It's talking about drone warfare. And it's really a great, complete analytical explication of drone warfare and the military-industrial complex. And, one thing it kind of presents, by the way, is similar to, I don't know how I can draw this similar to Shakespeare, but it talks about how we live. It's like, okay, if you consider the thing about flat Earth, okay, and you consider that if that is a purposeful top-down psyop, one of the reasons for that would be that the top-down psyop exists to divert from the panopticonic dome where drone warfare holds sway. In other words, that the two are kind of antithetical. So is it saying that this reminds me of Screw Tape? It reminds me of how Screw Tape talks to Wormwood, which is basically that he tells him, follow me on this little train here. Screw Tape is trying to, remember I did the Screw Tape analysis, but if Screw Tape is telling Wormwood that he says, you can't stop a person in prayer. The demon can't make the person not pray, especially when they're praying. And that some people have this kind of orbit cloud around them that God provides. So they are immune from they are protected. They're immune from demonic influence, is what he says in the book. But what a demon can do is divert their attention. So in other words, like while they're praying, introduce the thought that, oh, you left the stove on, or I left my keys somewhere. So by the time the person starts thinking about whether they left the stove on, then they get up to check the stove, and then they've forgotten what they were doing. So it's appealing to the kind of bestial nature in man, where man is different from beasts because we can remember things in sequence and we can make tools and we don't forget the thing that we were just doing. But that appeals to making man into a kind of beast. And I guess the line is, the sort of train of thought here is, that if you can divert people's attention with simple things, it diverts from important things or bigger issues. Now, I don't know how that gets sort of delineated in terms of that argument with flat Earth and with domes, but it's certainly the case that he's making is that part of the military-industrial complex, full spectrum dominance, exists now in a world where domes are important for the panopticon and for global warfare. And so diverting attention away from that makes that the case, if that follows. So here's this is Rimbaud, and Rimbaud wrote a great poem on A Midsummer Night's Dream about Bottom, the character Bottom, and his, remember, as Harold Bloom said, his kind of Gnostic archetypal new man apocalyptic angel is bottomless, or he's bottomless in terms of his love. And this is Bottom from Rimbaud. And he said, it's great because this is why Rimbaud is one of the poets who materialized. He materialized as a human being and as a poet and never changed in terms of his writing. And then that's it. Yeah, Kevin says there's weird little things like the Oxford's uncle was Sir Thomas Smith, who was the first to translate Ovid's Metamorphoses in English. But that doesn't, the translation, I mean, that's a good point, and I've read that point before. But the uncle translating Ovid doesn't translate into the Earl of Oxford writing plays. Right? The two don't translate. But it's a good point. Okay, he says, reality being too thorny for my great personality, I found myself nevertheless at my lady's, an enormous gray-blue bird soaring above toward the moldings of the ceiling and trailing my wings through the shadows of the evening. At the foot of the canopy, supporting her adored gems and her physical masterpieces, I saw a bear with violet gums, fur hoary with sorrow, eyes on the silver and crystal of the consoles. Everything became shadow and ardent aquarium. In the morning, bellicose dawn of June, a donkey, I rushed into the fields, braying and brandishing my grievance until the Sabine women of the suburbs came and threw themselves on my neck, which is perfectly emblematic of what we just read. The bear, ardent, Forest of Arden. Yeah, Earl of Oxford was a playwright. Yeah, I kind of covered that. Earl of Oxford was a playwright, but a third-rate playwright. He didn't write what Shakespeare wrote. He didn't. The quality of the extant writing of the Earl of Oxford just doesn't compare. But it's still one of the points that the Oxfordians make. Anyway, and then finally, here's another poem. This is Promontory, and I thought this is amazing because again, this is the characters in Midsummer standing on the promontory before the great sacrifice. Right. He says, golden dawn and shivering evening find our brig lying by opposite this villa and its dependencies, which form a promontory as extensive as Epirus and the Peloponnesus, or the large island of Japan, or as Arabia. Fanes lighted up by the return of the Theorii, prodigious views of a modern coast defenses, dunes illustrated with flaming flowers and bacchanalia, grand canals of Carthage and embankments of a dubious Venice, Etnas languidly erupting, and crevices of flowers and of glacier waters, washhouses surrounded by German poplars, strange parks with slopes bowing down the heads of the tree of Japan, and circular facades of the Grands and the Royals of Scarborough and of Brooklyn. And their railways flank, cut through, and overhang this hotel, whose plan was selected in the history of the most elegant and the most colossal edifices of Italy, America, and Asia, and whose windows and terraces, at the moment full of expensive illumination, drinks, and breezes, are open to the fancy of the travelers and the nobles, who during the day allow all the tarantellas of the coast, and even the ritornelles of the illustrious valleys of art, to decorate most wonderfully the facades of Promontory Palace. That poem is the reason I went to Scarborough. I was in Scarborough when Bush was inaugurated. I was there when I got a room in a pension, and I was staying there, and there was a television. I turned on the television, and Bush was giving his speech about an angel rides in the whirlwind. Look that up. Look up his inauguration speech about the angel rides in the whirlwind. That was after I'd made my way down from Robin Hood's Bay and from Robin Hood Country, through Whitby to Robin Hood's Bay, down to Colchester, down to Scarborough, all these places. Anyway, so that is there that goes. That's Rimbaud. That's Rimbaud's Illuminations, 1854 to 1891. Okay, that's about it, you guys. Also I covered Ezra Pound, and so coming up, I'm not sure what I have next, but that adds to my Shakespearean oeuvre. And let's see. I think that's about it. If you want to support, please do that anytime. You can support me at madmaximalism with 2 X's at gmail.com. You can hit PayPal, Cash App, Venmo on the video description or the channel description. You can super chat me anytime, ask me questions. Hey, Dr. Spengler, since $9.99 says great stream. Thank you, Dr. Spengler. Really appreciate you, sir. Make sure you guys watch my stream I just did on Donald Sutherland. I covered, it wasn't on Donald Sutherland, but I covered Donald Sutherland with Shadow Conspiracy and the movie The Contender, 2 90s conspiracy movies that you haven't seen, plus Disney's Black Hole. Please go back and watch that. I'm trying to get some more traction. I need to get, if you're watching right now and you haven't subbed, please hit that sub button. So that's about it, y'all. I appreciate you. Shouts out to Boiler Room Crew. Shouts out to everybody out there. Hope everybody's going to have a great rest of the week. I love y'all. And let's play us out with Sting and a cut off his new album. We do it live. This is Rooks G, Once and For All. Again, let's go. We do it live. Do it live. I'll write it. We'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks. Yes, sir. That is the spelling. That is the spelling. Let me give a link to this video. This is Rooks G. Please go over there and subscribe to his channel, like his music. Shouts out to the members out there, everybody watching. Happy Midsummer. Happy Midsummer. Have a good summer solstice. God bless you too, Toledo. Everyone out. Thank you, Ash. Check out these movies. I watch them so you don't have to, or so that you will. Check out the books, check out the plays, check out Shakespeare poems. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for being here. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Grab a membership, hang out with us sometime. I'll be doing a stream maybe tomorrow night. Peace, y'all. Love you. Peace. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Jethro is right. Yes, Big W Narco. Rimbaud. What's up to you, Bill Hicks? Leave a comment afterwards, you guys. Hey, shouts out to GC out there. Said $10. I enjoy all of your film and literature analysis. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Shouts out to GC.